and he had no mercy on all of the beautiful portions of Yaakov.
On top of the bridge
where the Siman Dalet appears. So Rabbi Pinchas, in the name of Rabbi Hoshaya, said, there were 480 Bate Knesset in Yerushalayim. Right? This wasn't because people were bickering and fighting. It wasn't Breslev and Chabad and Vishnitz and Koshnitz. This is just neighborhoods. There were 480 different neighborhoods, all of which had their own Bet Knesset in Yerushalayim. You'll see the Midrashim and Echa are very heavy on eulogizing the destruction of Yerushalayim. They'll tell you what a beautiful city it was, how much Torah there was, how little kids were interpreting dreams for like peanuts on the street, how it was full of Ruach HaKodesh, how life was. It wasn't easy, but it was very rich, spiritually speaking. So there were 480 Bate Knesset in Yerushalayim. How do we know? We know because the Haftarah that we're going to read this Shabbat, Maleati Mishpat Tzedek Yalid Bah. So Maleati Mishpat, my third person feminine, which is full of justice. In other words, the city, which is referred to in feminine. Incidentally, in almost every language I know, city is feminine. Ciudad in Spanish, Ir in Hebrew, even though the etymology sounds masculine. So Arim, the plural is in the masculine, but it's still in the declination is feminine. Die Stadt in German, La Ville in French, same thing. So Maleati Mishpat, so my city, she who is full of justice, where righteousness dwells, is now full of murderers. That's the pasuk. So Maleati Mishpat is written Maleti, like the aleph is missing. Okay, so do the math. Mem Lamed Tau Yod is how much? 480. So the aleph there, it's telling you the aleph there is not a mistake. It's not an accident. When the pasuk says Maleati Mishpat, what Yeshaya is referring to is that the just part of Yerushalayim is the Bate Knesset and the people who still cared about their spirituality. There were lots of people who didn't. But when Hashem says the city was full of justice, that's what he's referring to. And every Bet Knesset was not only a place that people prayed in, but they had a school and they had a high school. Bet Talmud is where people learn Talmud. It's already a high school. The equivalent of a Torah yeshiva high school. Bet Sefer leMikra u Bet Talmud leMishnah. So the Bet Sefer is the elementary school where they learn Mikra. They learn not just how to read, they learn Qiraya, they learn the Pesukim themselves. And Bet Talmud for Mishnah, where they would learn from the age of 10 Mishnah and 15 Talmud. Another interpretation of the Pasuk, Bila Hashem v'lo hamal et kol me'ot Yaakov. Hashem caused to be swallowed and didn't have mercy on all of the beautiful neighborhoods, beautiful dwellings of Yaakov. Et kol ne'otao shel Yaakov. Right, all of those things that are beautiful about Yaakov, such as Rabbi Ishmael, Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Sheva, Rabbi Yehuda, the Harugei Malchut, those who were killed, martyred because they were teaching Torah in public. Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava, Rabbi Chutzpita ben Turgeman, Rabbi Yehuda HaNachtom, Nachtom is a baker in Hebrew. Rabbi Hanina ben Terodion, Rabbi Akiva ben Azai, Rabbi Tarfon. Right, we eat the Mapekin Rabbi Tarfon, Ma'ilin Rabbi Elazar Harsana. There are those who instead of Rabbi Tarfon count Rabbi Elazar Harsana among them. Rabbi Yohanan would learn he would learn 60,000 different ways this pasuk of Hashem swallowed and had no mercy. Shitin Apin, 60 aspects of the pasuk. Tired, I'm not reading well. So he would learn this pasuk in 60 different ways. There's a famous pasuk at Kafatishif what says Salah. The Gemara says there are 70 different aspects of every pasuk in the Torah. And so Rabbi Yochanan he learned the 60 aspects from this pasuk. He knew 24 of them. It's not that Rabbi Yochanan was a greater Talmid Chacham than Rabbi. It's because Rabbi Yehuda was closer to the destruction of Beit HaMikdash, he remembered more, and when he would try to learn this pasuk, he would cry and he would find his comfort, his condolence. meaning he had difficulty speaking of the destruction. He would try to detour his thoughts towards comfort over the rebuilding Beit HaMikdash. Amar Rabbi Yehuda said, Rabbi HaDoresh, so this is drasha from Rabbi Yehuda, Darach Kochav miYaakov, this is a pasuk from Parashat Balak. Right, literally there's a charged star from Yaakov. Al tikri kochav ela kozev. So it's not just a star, something that shines light, maybe gives a little bit of distant hope. Kozev is something that disappoints. Kazav in Hebrew is another word for deception or treachery, lying basically, something that disappoints you. Kadab in Arabic is the word for a lie, someone who's lying with a dha, soft dalet. So lechazev means to disappoint or to be deceptive, right? Nahar shelo yachazevu memao, the Nabi uses the expression a river whose waters never disappoint. It's a river whose waters constantly flow, even in the summer, even in the winter. So what does this kozev mean? Darach kochav miYaakov, like lidroch, the Hebrew word for to charge, like the way that you would draw an arrow, draw a bow. So an archer, someone who fires arrows, you draw your bow. So darach tashto, you literally, they use the same word today to say that you charge that you loaded a gun. So once you've loaded a bullet into the chamber, it's called daruch. So what's this star that comes from Yaakov? And we say, no, it's not a star, it's a disappointment. So Rabbi Akiva, the explanation, Rabbi Akiva,
Just a question.
yeah.
Usually when we say don't read that, but that it's almost the same word but with different vowels, no? It's here.
So kochav, we make it a zayin, right? Instead of a kaf, we make it a zayin.
Yeah,
Very interesting question.
I don't understand. Just the only example I have in mind is like it's taking like with actually
Muzar, mamzer.
No, I think we've read before Melino and Shabbat.
But
It's the same thing, like it sounds the same.
Right, banaich and bonaich, right, so your children or your builders. So just like your children build you into a parent,
you're
into a
not
family.
changing a letter into another letter, so.
You have, in Tehillim we just spoke about, was it last week or 2 weeks ago? Muzar haiti le'echai, the pasuk in Tehillim. Don't read muzar, read mamzer. So David HaMelech, muzar would be like a stranger, an alien.
So
Mamzer would be.
It's a tradition that tells us that we're supposed to read.
We don't make these things up. Yeah. What Rav Redby would say in the name of Ashkenazi, what Chazal did, we accept. What no one else has the authority to do this.
Okay.
Same with Gematria. If you heard it from someone who's accepted to have achieved a certain level, we tend to accept it. If not, we don't. My wife blames these things on pregnancy. I don't like. She said that your memory goes when you.
Think it left?
Yeah.
Like a baby? Okay.
Yeah. So okay, if you remember, you remind us.
Zera Shava. It's also Zera Shava, right?
Gezerah Shava. Gezerah Shava is the word appears here. The same word appears there. Correct. That we don't have the authority. It's right. El Adam Dan Gezerah Shava Latzmo. In our times, we don't have the right to make our own Gezerah Shava. Well, we tend. What Chazal suspected of Marita Ayin, we continue to be suspicious of.
But we've not created new Marita.
Right. That's a little bit less of a golden rule, but yeah, in general, there are things that we could have forbidden, but they didn't, so we don't. The Ben Pakua is the classic example.
What?
Ben Pakua. If you slaughter a cow and she has a viable fetus that you keep alive, that you sustain, even as an adult, it doesn't require shechita, you can just shoot it and eat it. But you would say, in Marita Ayin, someone's going to see me eating an animal that I just shot or I hit with a car, and you're going to tell me, I thought he was religious and now all of his weddings are invalid. So the answer is no, because it's so bizarre, people would remember that it was a strange type of... I just heard this last week, that there are 2 such herds in America. Small herds of cattle that were raised from Bnei Pakua, yeah.
Oh, for kosher?
For kosher purposes? I mean, I don't know what they're doing with them, but yeah. Anyway.
You can make pita happy.
Right. Which is the goal of my life. I will have succeeded, right, when PETA approves of my meat consumption. Then, yeah. So PETA or hummus. So Darach Kochav miYaakov, Atikli Kochav ala Kozev. It could be that he's telling you that there's that the words are related. That's how Rabbi would say. The word kochav and the word kozev. Okay, let's digress a little bit. Sefer Tzira explains that the roots in Hebrew are effectively roots of two letters, and the third letter is to be understood either as a prefix or a suffix or as some kind of variable in the middle. So with that understanding, there's a lot of words you can read that way, like Resh and Shin, Rash. So Rash, Rosh, Bereshit, Berosh, and like a brush, a bush in English. We say brush in English. Berosh is like hedges, plant, small trees. Ra'ash, Rachash, Rechush, like belongings. So it has a lot to do with either value or order or hierarchy. So Rosh would be the most important, or the one who's Rash would be someone who's poor. So you put the aleph in the middle, and you turn someone who's poor into the head. Ra'ash is noise, something frightening, something humbling. Rechush would be possessions. So again, the Rash is poor, Rechush is what he doesn't have. So the letters influence each other. It's a fascinating concept. You can spend the rest of your life meditating on this. But basically, Kaf Bet is a very interesting combination of letters. We have the 22 letters that make up the Hebrew alphabet. So Kochav, the variable would be in the middle. So Kochav is a star. It's a reference to forces above and beyond what we understand and can appreciate. We can just benefit a very little bit from their light. Incidentally, we have Midrashim and the Zohar that tell you that the stars are bigger and more powerful than our sun. They're just extremely distant, and we can't feel their heat, and we can't really see their light. Part of part of the Avodah Zarah behind those who worship the stars, literally in the constellations, is this understanding some of them had that the sun is distant from us. It looks small, but it's bigger and more powerful than the earth. They seem to have understood that. And the stars are even bigger and more powerful, so maybe they have more power than the sun. In other words, maybe that represents the forces or the deities or the aspects of divinity that we're supposed to be worshiping. So what he's telling you is, it's deeper than that. It's not these words are similar, therefore I'm telling you this. It's that these words are related. And the difference is the difference between the kaf and the zayin. What makes kochav or kozev is the difference between those two letters. If you understand the essence of those letters, how they're composed and what they represent, then you appreciate the midrash even more. It sounds like they're just making games with words. Words with friends. Words with friends. Anyway, it's a game. So what he's actually telling you is that there's a relationship between these words and these letters, and this one I'm going to explain for you, and you can apply this elsewhere, just not so authoritatively. So Darach Kochav Mi'Yakov, what Bilam is telling you is that there's a powerful star that's charged, that's ready to launch from Yaakov. Like, even though we're small and our salvation seems distant, it's going to come very quickly and very powerfully. And he's telling you, no, it's not a reference to the star that represents our salvation. It's a reference to deception, to failure, someone who lies. Right? Very interesting. Why the play on words? Rabbi Akiva kadawa hamileh lehaden bar koziba. Anybody know the name bar koziba? Bar koziba. He's referred to. There we go. Kochav and kozev. So the Gemara refers to him as bar koziba. What's bar koziba? The son who disappointed, the one who deceived us, or people thought he was Mashiach, but he wasn't.
That's something to do with the star.
His name is Bar Kochba.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying,
the son of the star, literally.
Yeah, is that having to do with it? I don't know how you call it in English. The translation from that would be the falling star. Like when you see this,
a shooting star.
Yeah. That would be the metaphor to think about it, right? Because you see it and then it's a quantity that disappears.
It disappears. It burns up. Yeah, those are meteorites or asteroids that because of their velocity, whenever they encounter matter, they heat up and they either explode or they just dissipate. Yeah, they burn up. So it could be, in that sense, it definitely implies that he was powerful, that he had potential, that there was something about him that represented salvation, and then it burned up. He was killed. I mean, in the end, so Rabbi Akiva, whenever he would see this Bar Koziva, the man whose real name was Bar Kochva, he would say, this is the King Mashiach, like the anointed king. Every time he saw him. Rabbi Yochanan ben Torata. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Torata said to him, Akiva, Ya'lu asabim bilchayecha va'adain enova. He said, trust me, grass will grow from your cheeks, which is a very nice way of saying you're going to be dead, and you'll see that Mashiach will not have come yet. Rabbi Yochanan says that Kol Yaakov, in Pasuk in Parashat Toledot, Kol Adrianus Qesar Harag bebiter, we read biter, Ashkenazim read betar, 80,000 ribo, 80,000 times 10,000, that's 38 million people. 80 million people. באדם ו80,000 תוקעי קרנות היו צוררים לביתר, and there were 80,000 hornblowers alone, meaning representing, meant to energize an entire army that were participating in the siege over Biter. And Bar Kochva had 200,000 men who were missing fingers. Apparently this was something that had to do with their loyalty to him. It didn't make the Chachamim very happy, but yeah. Yeah, well, as proof of them being strong and loyal to him, it's.
Then he asked them to change, because the Chachamim complained to him, to Bar Kochva.
That's the Midrash right here.
Oh, is that okay?
Yeah. So he had these men who were like trying to prove they were strong. They could cut off fingers and survive. Right. Well, I'm so strong I can fight with 9 fingers. What do you expect? You know what I could do with 10. So the Chachamim said to him, like, why are you? How much longer do you intend to make all these people Balei Mumin? A Kohen who's missing a finger can't do Nesiat Kapayim. He said to them, and how else do you expect me to check them or to test them? Effectively what it's trying to say is that anyone who, if you're looking for strength, and you want to know if they're strong and they're capable, then how about have them uproot cedar trees? In other words, have them do something and demonstrate to you without cutting off, without mutilating their own bodies, that they're capable of doing this. So otherwise they shouldn't be written into your legions. And he had 200,000 people, soldiers on one side, 200,000 on the other, and when they would go out to war, what would his soldiers say? La tis'od, wa la tiskif. Right? Basically, don't help us and don't get in our way. We don't, and incidentally, Chazal understood this to mean they're referring to Hashem. Like they're telling Hashem, don't help us and don't get in our way. Let us handle this on our own, so to speak.
What was the point of not asking help for
That's the questionable questions, isn't it? This is what's written. That's a fascinating reading of a pasuk. Have you not, our Lord, abandoned us? Right? Lazniach in Hebrew is to abandon. And you do not go out amongst our legions. Okay? And what the Midrash is telling you is the pasuk reads Velo tetzeh, not you do not go out, but you should not, like please don't go out with us. I mean, you already abandoned us once, don't get involved this time, let us handle it. As if to say that's their understanding of the pasuk. And so this Ben Koziba, so what would he do, this Ben Koziba, Bar Kokhba? When they fired stones with a catapult, he would stop them with his foot, and he would throw them, and he would kill a few people every time. And about this, Rabbi Akiva said what he said. He was like super impressed with his ferocity, with his courage, and with his strength. Long story short, he ends up getting killed. It's not. It's where the midrash is long and goes off on a little bit of a tangent. But at the end of the day, he was killed in part of the failed rebellion. So, because of our avonot, if that's the next paragraph towards the middle. Anyway, if you want to, we'll have to. About 12 lines down from the top in the second paragraph. Anyway, he lost his arm, he lost his sight. The avonot of the nation caused such that Bitar was destroyed as a result of the siege. Bar Kokhba was killed as well, and they brought his head to Adrianus Caesar. They asked him who killed this guy. And they said one of the powerful soldiers said, "I was the one who did it." And he said, "Go ahead and come to me." He came anyway. He had a huge chain on his neck, and he says, "If not that his God had killed this guy, who could have killed him?" Right? It's a pasuk from Ha'azinu. Anyway, it goes on and describes the rest of the destruction of the city of Bitar. So why did I skip to that particular part? It's basically, Adranus Caesar is saying, this is a guy that I don't believe anyone could have killed by any rational means. Like, he should have destroyed all of us, even though the Jews were small in number. He had the power, the capacity to kill us. And this he's saying after he's holding his head, and he's saying, still, he's dead now, but really he probably could have killed us if not that his God had sold him or had left him somehow, which is what he said he wanted Hashem to do anyway. No, a little bit weird.
So if he had prayed to Hashem, he would have made it.
I don't know. You're asking me a what if question. What we used to say, what if questions are questions that by definition have no answer.
Okay.
Even a prophet probably could answer this question. You're asking me what would have happened if he'd done differently. I don't know. What happened as the result of his free will and that of everyone else in the generation. Had he done things differently, maybe it would have turned out differently. Why does the Midrash tell us what he used to say when he went to war, what his soldiers would say? Apparently he taught them to say this.
I was just saying,
I know it was God left. Basically, this guy who killed him was a massive guy with a massive chain on his neck, and he's saying, there's no way you killed him. He's saying his God killed him, because if not, you wouldn't have succeeded. And that's the Caesar who ultimately brings about the destruction of Bitar. So, and then even more fascinating than this is, what does Rabbi Akiva find in Bar Kokhba that's so messianic? I mean, you would think the Mashiach would be a from guy, right?
He doesn't say anything about his observance in one way or the other.
Doesn't sound like he's conventionally observant. If I had to guess, he wasn't working as a mashgiach in a restaurant. I mean, don't help me, don't get in my way.
What information?
Probably too learned. Yeah.
But what information do you have that says that he was not at least?
We don't know what level of observance he had or didn't have. That's an exceptionally, well, it's a somewhat heretical thing to say, no?
Well, the fact that Akiva thought he could be the Mashiach would imply that he must have been learned.
Yeah, that's how I see it.
Did it really, David?
He didn't, but he has to have some external aspect of what.
So you're making an assumption, right? You're so because you come from you were born with white privilege, you're making an assumption. You're telling me, wait a minute, I'm observant. The Mashiach has to be observant. There's no way Rabbi Akiva could have conceived of a less religious Mashiach, correct? Except the Midrash doesn't seem to imply that he was
Right.
the world's most religious guy. Or at least not in terms of religion the way that we're familiar with it. It's a conundrum. How do you find your way out of this? Rabbi Akiva was a pretty religious guy, yeah? I'm going to say yes. Abigail doesn't think so. Come on, I know better. So he's pretty observant, Rabbi Akiva. In fact, Rabbi Akiva himself, if you're familiar with his background of his history, what's his story? He wasn't observant. Then he became observant. He became observant. He became super observant. He became the greatest Rav of his generation. This is the Rav of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. What did he know, Rabbi Akiva, about either side, the religious side or the non-religious side, that makes this even a possibility? So it's beautiful.
He knows what he knows what it means to change. So he's like saying, I was, let's use the word secular, and then I became Shomer Mitzvot, and whoever I became. I didn't see in him the potential to become, if maybe he's not now. So maybe, yeah, you're right, maybe he wasn't, but in that he was so in him the potential
So
to
there's
become.
definitely something to be said for intensity. The man is intense. Abigail once asked David to cut off one of his fingers. He said no. The conversation died. This guy manages to get 400,000 people to do this. I say that's powerful, right? I mean, he's convincing. There's something compelling about his personality. Would you cut off your fingers for anyone? Yohan would. I wouldn't. I like my fingers. I work with them all the time. You can type with 9. That's great. Habiadik. Good for you. So the question then becomes, what is it about him that makes people loyal to him? Why are they loyal to him and disloyal to what you would consider to be the conventional, let's say the Rabbanut? When he was a somewhat dirty word. The political establishment that was at the time of Rabbi Akiva. And here we're saying, there's something about Bar Kochba that's appealing to these people. Maybe the people that are drawn to him aren't super observant either. They're the ones who are saying this, right? They're the ones who are saying, don't help us, don't hurt us, just leave it be. We'll figure this out. Very interesting. So, there's a fascinating drasha, an essay written by Rav Kook on this topic, where Rav Kook says, it's really funny, we have a perspective today, now, in this generation, that maybe makes this a little bit clearer, because the rebuilding of Eretz Israel, the rebirth of the Zionist spirit, was not carried out by the people who consider themselves to be God's gift to spirituality. Let's put it that way, right? The people who really consider themselves to be the most observant, the self-proclaimed Haredi community, who really tremble from the Word of God, just some words more than others, but they believe that they represent, they are a personification of the will of God as expressed by His prophets. Nonetheless, when World War II came around, think along the lines of the assassins of Gedaliah ben Achikam, these are the people who decided that we're better off living under Polish and Hungarian Catholics than we are living under secular Jews in Israel. Because the Catholics are a great spiritual example, because they're tolerant and multicultural and diverse, and they're into all of our political correctness, except they kill lots of people. And we have an issue with that. Well, some of us do, some of us don't. So Rav Kook said this is fascinating. This actually resonates with the famous drasha of Hazav describing the generation of the redemption. Does anyone want to take a stab at this? It's a very, very famous portion of Talmud, a passage at the end of Masechet Sotah, where Hazal described the generation of the Mashiach. And how do they describe it? Be'ikveta dimshicha, right? In the times of the Mashiach, in the chutzpah yisgeh, right? It's in Aramaic. In the times of the Mashiach, like in the steps of the Mashiach, when Mashiach is literally on his way, chutzpah yisgeh. This concept that we've come to know and love as chutzpah will grow, right? Tzadiq katamar yifrach keres b'avanon yisgeh. So yisgot means to grow, to become more prominent. So chutzpah is this at a simple reading, the superficial reading of the Gemara. Chutzpah is the Gemara is describing to the Haredi reading of the Gemara would be that the generation before the Mashiach, its spirituality will be so dilapidated that all of the bad midot will take over, all the good midot will disappear. And in fact, the Gemara over there goes on and it says that that the house of leadership, if it's the rabbinate of the generation or the government of the generation, will effectively become prostitution. That's a prophecy that we've all merited to see come true in our time. It goes on to say that those who learn the Torah are going to be scorned. They'll be bzuim. They'll be considered. People will have no respect for those who study and observe the Torah. Ben qam ba'avihu, kara kama b'hamutah. A son fights with his father. A daughter-in-law fights with her mother-in-law. I don't know about you, but I've seen it happen. I love my mother-in-law. I don't have enough opportunities to say that. But the Haredi reading, in the classic superficial reading, it's classically Haredi to read things superficially, is that the generation will have collapsed. Kalu kol haqitzim, everything is over. And how does the Gemara conclude? The famous song, right? We have no one to rely upon except for our Father who is in heaven. So Rav Kook offers the following alternative reading, right? The Chokhmat Sofrim Tisrach is the expression, the wisdom of the learned people will putrefy. So he says, maybe, just maybe, there's something wrong with the conventional understanding of Torah. Maybe the reason that we haven't been redeemed is because we're so beholden to this Haredish, superficial, classical, conventional understanding of Torah and Midot and Mitzvot, the Neshama, etc. Maybe something has to give. Maybe that's the system that needs to change in order to make way for Mashiach. In other words, on the heels of Mashiach, chutzpah will grow, not a bad kind of chutzpah necessarily, maybe not always necessarily a good kind of chutzpah, but the idea is that this chutzpah is like a necessary ingredient for the redemption. Up until now, you've tried things your way, and for whatever reason it hasn't worked. Maybe it's time to try something else. I'm not suggesting completely secular society. I'm not suggesting we should hide behind books and ignore science and certain easily demonstrable facts and features of the natural world. Maybe we need to find some kind of middle way. But the establishment is not very quick to change. Establishments are quick to change. This is true of the Republican establishment, the Democratic establishment. Establishments don't like to change themselves because they're established. Why would you change something when you are the one who is established? So Rav Kook is saying we need an insolent rebellion against the status quo, the conventional Torah study. Why insolent? Because in a framework, in a paradigm in which we normally worship Talmidei Chachamim and we don't go left or right from whatever it is that they tell us, that's great, but maybe sometimes the perspective needs to change. Maybe there's something wrong with the conventional, traditional perspective and it needs to break. Maybe the purpose of the Galut was to break what's wrong with our grasp, our appreciation, our study of Torah, in order to replace it with something much more permanent, much more refined, much better filtered, let's say. Maybe there's a little bit of nonsense to come out. So, Ben Kam Ba'aviu, how do you understand this? A son challenges, his father. What if the father is secular and the son wants to become Shabbat observant and eat kosher food? Is that a good thing or a bad thing if the son is rebellious? Is every rebellion necessarily bad? No. Is every rebellion necessarily good? No. But maybe there's a certain room there's a need for a good, healthy, spiritually productive kind of rebellion. Maybe the good rebellion will come with some bad parts too, but that may also be necessary. It is what it is. So, Kala Kama Bahamutah. Okay, it could be that she got married the same Baal Teshuvah that has issues with his father, and so her mother-in-law is not so observant and gives her bad advice and tries to pull her in different directions. Never met anyone like that, but I've read stories. So maybe what we're describing is not a bad form of insolence. It's not the insolence that takes the whole Torah and throws out the baby with the bathwater. Maybe what we need is a genuinely spiritual revolution. We have a lot of very interesting Divrei Torah that Mamarei Chazal that kind of corroborate these reactions. Be careful from, be wary of the poor because the Torah is ultimately going to come from them. Some interpretations explain the spiritually poor, i.e. Balei Teshuvah or Girim. Maybe they bring some kind of an intensity, maybe they bring something different with them when they become Torah observant or when they become Jewish, and maybe that's the missing ingredient or one of the missing ingredients in our redemption. Maybe our approach towards converts needs to change. Maybe there are neshamot that we are here. Masechet Pesachim, the Gemara says this. The reason we have galut is to collect the gerim that we're missing. Why are we missing them? How long have we been missing? How do we find them? What's the process? We can debate this, but the idea that there are neshamot that aren't yet Jewish and need to be almost implies in a certain way that we should be open and receptive to them. No. Abigail says, no, I want to be Syrian. Be Syrian. Suit yourself. Cut off David's fingers. Do your own thing. The point is that, change is not progress by definition, but at the same time, it's not necessarily evil. And because something is conventional and traditional accepted, doesn't mean that it doesn't need to change. Am I saying we should throw out all the Torah? God forbid, throw out the mitzvot, but maybe our understanding of the mitzvot is not so spiritually precise or accurate. And so Rabbi Akiva sees Bar Kochba, and he says, rebellion is not a bad thing. I went through a rebellion of my own, a good rebellion. I used to be secular, ferociously secular. He talks about himself. He said, had you brought me a Talmid Chacham before I did Teshuvah, before the age of 40, he says, I would have bit him like a mule. I would have crushed his bones. I despised Talmid Chachamim. And then when I realized the real depth of the Torah, I became the greatest rabbi of the generation. Why? Not because I behaved just like they wanted me to or the way they did. Because when I got to the real depth of the Torah, I realized that some people have a superficial understanding of it. But when you get to the depth of it, he's like Zohar, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai kind of depth of it, you see things very differently. You appreciate things differently. So here's a Baal Teshuvah telling you, this man has a tremendous neshama. He has tremendous potential. He rebelled against the Rabbanim of his generation, who are what? Tzadikim Gmurim. If the destruction happens around this time, or these are the vestiges of the destruction, it might be that same rotten mentality that caused Beit HaMikdash to be destroyed in the first place. What he's telling you is, fine, the Haredi establishment is not going to like this guy, I like him. And if I have to put my money on a horse in the race, that's the guy I'm putting it on. Because we need someone who has the koach to make a revolution. He has them. He rouses up the troops. He has them fighting for a good cause, for the right reason. He has all the makings of someone who can bring about a national revolution, a national rebellion, so to speak. And the rebellion is really an internal thing. It's not so much rebelling. That was the difference, by the way. It wasn't a rebellion. What we needed wasn't a rebellion against the Romans. We needed a rebellion against what was wrong with us. And because the establishment had become corrupted, because it clearly had, this is recorded left and right in the Gemara and the Midrashim, he was the one who maybe had the power to bring about the internal rebellion that we needed in order to bring about redemption. And ultimately, the Goyim, we would have dealt with them much more easily. So he fell into that trap of, the Gemara says, Rashi explains, the face of the generation is like the face of a dog. Now she explains, what do you mean? What does that mean? That means when a dog does something crazy or stupid and you hit it with a stick, the dog bites the stick. So the generation, we fight the punishment. Don't fight the punishment. Fight the reason you got punished. Change the roots that are crooked or evil or rotten. Do what you need to do in order to obviate the need for punishment in the first place. You're fighting the symptoms. So the Romans are here. I'm going to show the Romans. Show the Romans. Show the Jews first. Teach them something. Get them fighting on the same team. You have 400,000 troops. If you could teach Torah this way, if you could rile people up and get them excited and motivated and inspired, and hope to, maybe infect them with this spiritual appetite and a desire to see genuine, true, real spirituality, maybe Mashiach would have come this way. A beautiful thought about Rav Kook on the concept. Chutzpah is not necessarily, by definition, a bad thing or a good thing. It's a tool. It just depends how you use it, and how much you control it, and what you intend to do with it. Rabbi Akiva liked that he had some pizzazz, that he had some, ferocity to it, and just that it wasn't necessarily manifest in the most productive way. But the very fact that Rabbi Akiva saw a potential redeemer in him is an indication to us that redemption comes in funny ways, and sometimes it's our own convention, our own bad habits, and our own customs and traditions, or personal idiosyncrasies that prevent us from making progress. Sometimes you need to rebel against yourself, fight against it, change yourself, make yourself better. Hopefully, other people do the same. So, should have a meaningful fast if it still proves necessary come Sunday, and Be'ezrat Hashem Yitbarach, maybe refresh our perspective on Torah and mitzvot thereafter.